Umaima, and I think after Sister Hidayah, I'm the only other wife of an incarcerated man here. Is that correct? Everybody else is a mother or a daughter or a sister. And when somebody else was speaking just a little while ago, my husband called, and I just went outside, and he's like, "How's the conference going?" And I was like, "Man, we have it so good. Wallahi, we have it so good," because I'm hearing stories of people locked up for 30 years, for life, and we have it so good. And it's a little bit of like survivor's guilt. I feel like my story is nothing compared to yours, but like you said, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, but I remember every story means something. And our story means something because I have 4 kids who are the victims of our story, of my husband's story. His name is Ibrahim Muhammad. You might have read his story. I have a Facebook page for Ibrahim now. You can read his story that I wrote. I wrote an op-ed called "The Day My Husband Fell." And I just, to bring in my personal perspective in the story, and if you read "The Day My Husband Fell," you get my story. You read my children's story. And I'll share a little bit of that with you. In 2011, we were raided by the FBI, and they came in hordes like ants into my small town home. And I just remember, shaking. Fear is obviously the first emotion you have. And then after that, it was like beast mode, because my dad raised strong women, and I give those FBI agents hell. I literally drove them nuts. And the attorney later was like, that could have backfired. Like they could have arrested your husband, they could have arrested you, you could have really screwed up the case. And I was like, no. I mean, and I'm not proud of saying this, but literally all that was coming out of my mouth was profanity. And they were shocked to see a Muslim woman cursing them down, up and down my house. I walked around my house like I owned it, because I did. And they were literally chasing me. They're like, no, you have to sit down. And I was like, no, you follow me. And I gave them hell. And I remember telling my husband, you have the right to remain silent. And if you talk, I will kill you. And unfortunately, he spoke a little bit. He did. And it's because of that, that's the only thing is literally the only thing they're holding him on. So they raided us in 2011, and I remember like my husband sitting there in the dining room, and I was sitting here on the sofa trying to entertain. See that one over there coloring? That's what she was doing the day they raided us. She hasn't spoken about it, but I really hope she doesn't remember. And then my third baby was 6 months old, swinging in the swing in the corner. So I was playing mom, and I was playing wife, trying to defend my husband. And I just remember looking across at the dining table, and our eyes met, and we just smiled at each other. I put on the bravest smile I could have to ease his heart, because I know it is so daunting to be questioned by any sort of authority, right? Especially the FBI breathing down your neck, especially if you have 40 agents going through your house. Fast forward to 2015, and he gets arrested, and the story that I wrote, the op-ed that I wrote, is called "The Day My Husband Fell," and it's because when they were going on about these legalities, they're just talking, they're like, okay, you're going to be arrested, you're going to move to this jail, and then contact your lawyer, and then he's going to be arraigned, blah blah blah. And all I heard was a thud, and my husband fell. Like Linda was saying, her son is huge. He's a big man with a soft heart, and that was my husband. He's a big man, and he fell because his life flashed before his eyes. And he was only thinking about the 4 kids inside that house, and he was thinking about his old mother who's across the world. And And he fell that day, and I remember picking him up. I picked him up and I held his head and I was like, listen to me, we will fight this. And he has told me, and I'm not ashamed to boast about it, that he's like, I'm glad I married you. I'm glad I married this really strong woman. And I was like, don't thank me, thank my father who raised me. It's been hard, and I remember when they drove him away in an unmarked car. They drove him away in an unmarked car, and I remember when he left, I just waved, and I put on that smile again. And I was like, I don't want him to see me cry. I don't want him to see me frown. I don't want him to see me cursing. I smiled in his face, and he drove away. And then I stood in our driveway, not knowing what to think. And I grabbed the trash can, because I was like, oh, it's trash day, and I should take the trash out. And there were neighbors out in their driveways, because they saw 14 police cars and unmarked cars. And when my husband fell, they called 911. So there was a fire truck, there was an ambulance. It was just, it made great for entertainment for the neighbors. And so this one neighbor, he saw me taking out the trash after they just arrested my husband. And he came and he's like, are you okay? And I was like, no, I'm not. And then I cried, and he held my hand. And then I was like, I gotta get to work. And I went inside the house, I packed up the kids, I went to somebody else's house, and I called the lawyer, and we've been on this road, we've been on this journey since then. Beast mode doesn't turn off, but it goes through different phases, and I remember not eating. I literally remember not eating for 3 days. I lost 15 pounds in a week. I remember zombie mode with the kids, where it was just like school, eat, bed, just you guys survive, I'll manage somehow. I remember not sleeping, and I remember just putting the kids to bed and then crying, because that's the only time I was allowed to cry, or that's what I told myself, because the kids can't see me cry. And that's the only time I had with myself and with my Lord to pray for my husband. And I hung onto every memory, every shed I had of him, and I would wake up and think, okay, he'll be next to me in bed. Like, I'll wake up and he'll be next to me in bed, and he wasn't. And I would beg God, I was like, wait, you're supposed to wake me up. This nightmare's supposed to end. Wake me up. 3 years later is today. And it was only 2 years ago that I wrote my op-ed. And everybody was like, you have to tell your story. You have to tell your story. And it took me 2 years to tell my story. And it has snowballed since then. And I'm so glad I told that story, because that's how I met Lena. That's how I met everybody from CCF. And that's how I learned about all these other stories of people here. And we are a family, and we have to keep telling our stories. And I just want to end with one thing, is an update about my husband. We were going to trial in April 2018, and just 2 weeks before, as expected, they came to us with a plea deal. And you know, he was looking at like 80 years, 85 years, which is life, you know, and they're like, we're going to drop all your charges, and we're going to give you a lesser charge of, you know, he was copying on a bunch of emails, you know, that's it, somebody lied. He's a defendant amongst 3 other guys, including his own brother. So when I see other moms speaking here, I think of my mother-in-law, whose 2 sons, both her sons, and her only sons are in prison. And my brother-in-law has already been sentenced to 27.5 years. So my husband was given a lesser charge, which was, you were copied on the emails, you knew what might have happened, or maybe you didn't know what was going to happen, but sorry, I'm going to wrap it up. But it was just, you didn't tattletale on stuff you didn't know was going to happen, or a thought crime that didn't exist. We took a plea deal, which is actually very, very, very difficult to take when you plead guilty to something you did not do. And I remember being in court, and I was sitting right behind my husband, and the judge is like, do you plead guilty? He said, how do you plead, Ibrahim? And Ibrahim, I know my husband has high morals and principles. He's he is a man of integrity. And for him to say, I plead guilty, I heard it catch in his throat. And he said it, and then his lawyer actually stopped him, and he was like, are you sure you want to do this? The only reason my husband did this was because he has 4 kids at home, and he has a chance of seeing them. He took the plea deal. His sentencing is next month, inshallah, and he actually has just a 1.5 years to go, including time served. So I have that guilt that everybody else is suffering so much, but we're almost done with our sentence. Even though my husband gets deported, we're just like, screw it. We'll go start a new life somewhere else in the world that's hopefully better than this place. But this is my home, and it's betrayed me. And I'm kind of done. It's left a sour taste in my mouth. I want to write some more, but we've been told not to until official sentencing because we don't want to anger the judge. So just stay tuned to hearing more from us, God willing.